Live Postgame Show on a Wednesday night. Welcome aboard. I'm Dave DiNatale along with Jim Donovan. It's not official, but it may as well be. The Cleveland Browns are set. Could be at any moment they will name Freddie Kitchens as their new head coach, Jimmy. And this, I thought you put it well. We have a link here on Facebook Live to Jimmy's take, and I thought you put it really well during the six. It's pretty improbable climb what this man, the son of a tire worker in Gadsden, Alabama, what he's done in the last 6 months or so to ascend now to the point where at some juncture here in the next 24, 48 hours, he's going to be introduced as the new coach.
Well, Dino, it's good to see that somebody from Alabama this week had a good week, and that would be Freddie Kitchens. I think the hang-up right now in this, official announcement and the information of when they'll officially do it at a press conference might be a signed contract.
Right.
I don't think they probably want to announce anything until they have a signed contract, which would tell me, not that this is difficult to get it done, but it would tell me that this went till like noon today until he was actually the head coach of the team, and then you have to go through the structure of how you're going to pay him and what the contract's going to be and what the buyouts would be, what the power structure is going to be. I understand he's going to report to John Dorsey.
Hallelujah.
Which is different, of course, than Hugh Jackson and other coaches.
Hallelujah.
But Hugh Jackson reported to the Haslams,
yes,
and John Dorsey reported to the Haslams, but Freddie Kitchens will report, reportedly, to John Dorsey. But I would think right now we're in the throes of getting a contract signed.
Yeah, and while that's happening, we also have found out that a lot of members of the coaching staff in this past year at this part are not being asked back. It's going to be kind of a clean slate. Doesn't mean that once kind of the dust settles, Freddie Kitchens couldn't interview, if you wanted Amos Jones back, he couldn't re-interview him or whatever, but it looks like it's going to be a fresh start in many cases in the coaching staff. Yeah,
there are a couple of key guys that he is keeping around. He is keeping Adam Henry, the wide receiver coach, who did a great job with the Browns receivers this year and really did a very, very good job. He was very highly thought of coming in, leaving LSU to come in here and take the job with the Browns. And they definitely wanted to keep him around no matter who the head coach was going to be. But it's made easier because he's worked with Freddie on the staff this year. So they're keeping him. Ryan Lindley's an interesting story. Ryan Lindley was a quarterback in the NFL for a cup of coffee, a couple of years. Yeah. He was, I'll tell you a story. I was with him in Cincinnati before the Browns took on the Cincinnati Bengals. Ryan Lindley, at the beginning of the year, you talk about a meteoric rise with Freddie Kitchens. How about this? Ryan Lindley was on the staff at San Diego State, and he was going through the season with the Aztecs as part of their, as part of their coaching staff. He had a call from now interim offensive coordinator, Freddie Kitchens, who had worked with him and coached him in Arizona, and said, hey, listen, I'm the offensive coordinator. I need a running backs coach. Why don't you join me here? This will give you an opportunity to come into the NFL. So he goes to the people at San Diego State. Hey, listen, I'm thinking of getting an interview, taking this interview to go to Cleveland and talk about it. And they said, they might have been in a bye week or something, the Aztecs. And they said, yeah, go ahead. And his wife said to him, hey, listen, remember now, you have a job here.
Right.
You don't know if you're going to get the job there.
But you have a sure thing right here.
Yeah, he comes to Cleveland. They offer him the job. He goes back home. He talks about it with his wife. And he goes to the people at San Diego State and says, I'm going to leave. And they go, wait a minute, And he goes, well, I thought you told me to go take the interview. So, he was in kind of a precarious situation because this all could have blown up on him, too, personally. Right. He could be on the outside looking in. And I don't think he could go back to San Diego State. Now, he's got the opportunity to probably, because I think he and Freddie are very, very tight, he could at least be the quarterback coach because Ken Zampese was released as today as the quarterback coach. Or he could be in a position that Eric Bieniemy was in and is in right now in Kansas City, where you could make him an offensive coordinator with no play calling duties. Yep. But he could be he could learn how to become an offensive coordinator because Freddie, I believe, is going to call his own plays.
I would think so.
So Ryan Lindley is a guy that keep your eye on him. He's going to come back. And there are some others, but I'm not surprised that they cleaned the house special teams wise. I think that would have happened anyway.
Yeah.
Bob Wiley,
had to happen.
Bob Wiley, who was kind of a cult figure coming out of Hard Knocks, the offensive line coach who suffered a very serious injury right at the end of the year, a broken ankle and some other complications with a very, very tough rehab assignment coming up for him. Bob, I think, is in a rehab facility right now trying to get better. He was released, and a lot of people thought he did a great job when you consider at the beginning of the year he has to replace a future Hall of Famer in Joe Thomas.
Yeah.
He's got an undrafted rookie free agent in Desmond Harrison, who's there. He's got a top draft choice in the second round, in Corbett, who is there, but really isn't showing good form at left tackle. And he's got Greg Robinson, and he did a lot of good things. And he ended up with two guys going to the Pro Bowl.
With a different style of quarterbacks from when the season started to when Baker took over.
But he's gone. He is out too. And so I hope Bob is okay physically. That's the most important thing. But I think he did a really good job, and I pretty much cleaned the slate over on the defensive side. And the biggest being Greg Williams.
Yeah, and I mean that wasn't a surprise. And tip of the cap though to Greg Williams.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure we don't forget about that. And a lot of you, since we've had this coaching search, and so many of you here on Facebook Live have said, "Boy, why won't they keep Greg Williams?" Or talking about Greg Williams. He, in a very difficult situation, he came in and did a terrific job keeping that locker room together, keeping that coaching staff together, and finishing out 5-3 in his 8 games. Terrific job.
Yeah, he really did. He sent a very nice message
Yeah.
upon leaving the Browns that he loved it here. He's proud that he coached here. He loved the fans. He, very, very classy.
Yeah.
And I would think that Greg will get a job now with all these staffs, these new staffs being put together, that Greg could go in and, immediately change the culture. I mean, the minute he walks through the door, he'll change the culture. And yeah, he's a well-credentialed and well-proven defensive coordinator.
Yeah. And of course, everybody loved it because Hard Knocks, come get some, and all that fun stuff.
But that's how he ended his message.
That's right.
As always, remember, come get some.
Yeah. By the way, a quick another coaching breaking news. It looks like Adam Gase is going to stay in the AFC East and go from coaching the Dolphins to the New York Jets.
So he only has 2 more to go around the horn.
That's right.
He'll get the Patriots and the Buffalo Bills.
That's right.
And I wouldn't count out someday that he gets the Buffalo Bills. I don't know about the Patriots job. Boy, Dino, this has been a very interesting search.
Yeah.
Because people that I think we thought that they would interview, they didn't interview.
Right.
I think we thought they would interview Josh McDaniels. They didn't. I think they thought that they would interview Adam Gase, and they didn't even come close to him. He was like, he was radioactive to them. And that might be hurt feelings from the past where he refused to be interviewed by them on 2 other occasions, when he was with Denver and then, when he was with Denver a couple of times. And then, Mike McCarthy. They did not buy into Mike McCarthy. So
because there were connection. I mean, with the Gase, you had the
Totally.
Peyton Manning connection. With obviously McCarthy, you had a connection to John Dorsey and Elliott Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith. Also, Jimmy, I mean, they stayed away from the Kansas City guys,
the
which
Kansas
I was
City
kind of surprised about.
Yeah, because John Dorsey was in Kansas City, and he knew Dave Tobe, and he knows Bieniemy, and he knows those people. Bieniemy did get an interview. I believe he got one in Cincinnati.
Yes, he did.
If not someplace else. And he did not ask for permission to even inquire about that. The thing is that, Mary Kay Cabot was with us, along with Bud Shaw, on the 7 o'clock news. She felt that Dorsey was a huge Kitchens guy all the way through. I didn't think he was a huge Kitchens guy.
Yeah.
I thought that he was really looking, out on the landscape to find somebody. And as the list kept coming out, there was nobody that was knocking my socks off.
No.
And I'm not saying that Freddie Kitchens ended up getting it as a consolation prize, but there was just something that was strange about the list to me.
Yeah, there was no
dynamic
guy. And you look at there's always somebody who's either broadcasting, Bill Cowher, for example. There's always that guy who's going to be, or before Gruden came back and joined the Raiders, Gruden was always a guy that, people would ask if he's interested, or Nick Saban. There was nothing like that.
And think about it now. Bruce Arians threw his name in the hat very, very early. Yeah. And Bruce probably threw his hat in, that little hat that he wears on the air. He threw his hat in very early publicly on CBS and on the Rich Eisen show and all these shows. Hey, I want to coach the Cleveland Browns, and he didn't even get an interview. Here's what I'm wondering this, though. I'm wondering if there was going to be a wow pick, would it have been Lincoln Riley?
I do. I think that's the only guy that I can think of, other than, like, again, Nick Saban or somebody like that, would have been Lincoln Riley. Hot college coach. He's coached Baker Mayfield to a Heisman Trophy. Next guy up gets the Heisman Trophy.
Right.
Really has Oklahoma as one of the elite teams in college
football.
Absolutely, yeah. Great mind, air raid offense, all that. That would have. I mean, that's the only thing I honestly. So
maybe I think, and I think it's pretty well been documented that John Dorsey was in Norman, Oklahoma a number of times. Now, whether he was, I don't think he was there watching Kyler Murray.
No, okay? I don't either.
Now, maybe some of their receivers. I mean, they have a lot of talent down there. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sure that he must have gotten some kind of indication from Lincoln Riley or his representatives that not going to go. So, and believe me, a college coach has to be careful when they put their toe in the water of the NFL just to even inquire about a job, because it cripples you recruiting-wise. And at a place like Oklahoma, that could really hurt. Bob Stoops used to face that problem almost annually for a couple of reasons, because he was very successful, and the other thing was we were always looking for a head coach here, and the Youngstown thing was being brought up, and Bob Stoops would go, "Hey, come on, I'm not going. I'm not going."
Well, especially with this early signing this year and everything, it's doubly important to make sure you're telling these recruits, "Nope, I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere."
Right.
There are a lot of factors, and we're writing about this right now at WKYC.com. You laid it out in Jimmy's take during the 6. There are a lot of factors that kind of maybe push the needle over to Freddie Kitchens as opposed to the other 6 candidates that were out there. I didn't consider until you mentioned it, but I think it's an important point. Relatability to Browns fans. Somebody that Browns fans can reach out and feel like they're being embraced and can embrace in return. That hasn't been here since the 80s, since Sam and Marty, Retigliano and Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
From Bill Belichick on now to the expansion era, that's been an element that's been gone. And you pointed out that, Sam Retigliano was a Pied Piper.
He was.
Freddie Kitchens has that kind of
personality
where, he looks like one of us as a fan. He talks like a fan. He talks like somebody that you can sit and have a beer with and converse about football for hours and hours.
Absolutely. And that's been missing. And it's, league-wide, that's been missing. There aren't, in New York, Giant fans love Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
They watched his press conference because he was so tough on the media.
Yes.
Okay, and he played games with the media.
Absolutely.
And you watched it. When I wasn't working in Cleveland when Sam was the head coach. I came here the year he got fired, and Marty was elevated to become the head coach. But I can remember listening to Sam Retigliano's press conferences on Monday.
Yes.
On Monday night on the old 3WE.
That's right.
Okay. And I would listen. I think Pete Franklin used
to play them back.
Used to play the back, and I thought, this guy is hysterical.
Yeah.
This guy is phenomenal. He's got a really unique way of looking at it. Marty was just so passionate.
Yes.
I mean, Marty would cry at press conferences. Okay.
He was out of the Dick Vermeil school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That then left, and this new age of coaches, they are robotic. They don't let anything out there beyond being close to the vest.
They're cold. I mean, sometimes they're cold.
They're cold. They have no personality. Right. They're not socialized enough, and they have no connection to the fans. Right. They really don't. They don't have a connection to the fans. This guy, I think, will.
Yeah.
I think he will. This is the way he is. Yeah. He's just like that. Yeah. He really is.
He is also, in Freddie Kitchens, he's an overcomer. And, almost 6 years ago now, I mean, he had what should have been a fatal heart condition, that aortic tear that, you normally give a 20% chance of recovery.
Right.
And, I mean, it happened during OTAs with the Cardinals, and a couple of weeks later, he's there coaching in time for training camp.
Wow.
And, I mean, he's an overcomer. And you sit there and you go, wow. And the word that people around the NFL use about Freddie Kitchens is selfless. And I think as a coach, you got to have an ego, of course. I mean, we all do. Everybody does, but you also have to, you have to account for the 53 guys you're coaching, the staff, the guys 3 doors down in the general manager's office, the owners. You do have to be a little selfless, and Freddie Kitchens has that.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he'll be a great guy here. But now he comes in, in a different situation than a lot of these coaches have walked in and taken that job, okay? Because the expectations are very high now. This is different. I mean, they're expected to win next year.
Yes.
And, and rightfully so. And he understands that because he's not walking in from some different location. Right. He was here. He knows what he has, and he knows now what he needs. Yep. And today he took steps to clear the deck of the people that he needs to change. And, we'll see what he does. But he's going to be expected to win. He knows he's got a quarterback.
Right.
And I think that relationship really got him the job.
Yeah, that was ultimately if everything came down to a tie on all angles. I mentioned relatability with fans and being an overcomer, and he's got a great pedigree of coaches he's worked for and played for. But when it all came down to it, the Baker factor had to be what was the final thing that pushed it over.
Right. And Baker and he just clicked. And I got to tell you, friends, I sound like Jim Nantz. Yes. But the 4th preseason game, okay, a meaningless game, except for guys like Brogan Roback and at
the time of Nate Orchard and
Derek Willies
and
people like that, and who's the kid, Carl Nassib, all those guys. Okay, that's
the Juice, the Juice, Devin Kajus.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big game for them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really is a game where a team just wants to get in and get out and get home, get ready for the opener. But they said to Freddie, they were up in Detroit at Ford Field playing the Lions, and they said, call the plays.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, Dino, I don't know if you remember the game.
I do.
The Browns never looked better.
No.
Offensively. I mean, they looked lethal.
Right.
I mean, they were Patrick Mahomes before Patrick Mahomes. Right. I mean, Baker Mayfield looked unbelievable.
He surgically destroyed the Lions.
It was amazing, and Freddie called a great game. And I think John Dorsey went, wow, I think we have a little bit more than a running backs coach here.
So when 8 weeks later, when this Hugh Jackson, Todd Haley situation becomes so toxic they have to make a change, in the back of his mind, Kitchens can call the plays, and let's see what he can do. And they saw what he could do.
Yeah.
I mean, he was able to show that same creativity and explosiveness that we saw that night in Detroit for the rest of the season.
And the other thing they saw was and you bring up a very good point, the toxic situation that was prevalent. And they were in like a 4-game losing streak, and Hugh got fired. Todd Haley got fired.
Right after Pittsburgh.
Right after the Pittsburgh game, an hour later after Hugh got fired. But they were also worried about this situation is crippling the young quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a tough kid, but he doesn't need this. So to see him come in then and immediately perk up and the way he played the final 8 games with Freddie Kitchens and the fun that they had. I mean, he made football fun for them and for us. It was that I think helped him. And really, when you think about it, that was his job interview.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't need to. I mean, but the difference is, he's the guy that gets the phone call at 2:30 in the morning if somebody gets pulled over.
Right.
He's the guy that's. I mean, he doesn't mind doing press conferences. Trust us. I mean, if you saw his Thursday press conferences, the final 8 weeks, he doesn't mind talking. But he's the one that's got to do the weekly coaches show. He's got to talk to you before games. He's got commitments on his time. It's a different world now. He still knows how to call the plays. He still knows how to relate to Baker Mayfield. He still knows this offense. But he's gonna find interesting challenges as he steps his way through being a head coach. He's never been a head coach at the college level or the NFL level like this. So this is a new world for him.
Well, and this is now, from this point on, this will be where John Dorsey and Highsmith and Elliott Wolf really can help him, because they can help him get these coaches hired. And there are some important spots. I mean, they really need to get a good defensive coordinator.
Yes.
And they need that guy to run a 4-3 because they're built to be a 4-3, and they're good being a 4-3. and you don't want to slow these players' progress down by, hey, remember when you were a defensive end? Well, now you're an outside linebacker. Okay?
You got to put your hand. You got to get your hand off the ground.
Yeah,
now.
This is what you got to do. They're going to need an offensive line coach, and I'm going to tell you, they need to be more concerned about their special teams.
Yes.
And it cost them a playoff spot. It cost them too many games this year. It's too important for every team, and they fall into that line. So he's going to need that front office, as good as they are, to really be good right now to help him find these coaches and get them here.
Can we find Brad Seeley and get him back as special?
Brad Seeley's hanging around, yeah.
Call Brad Seeley. Come on back, Brad.
I think he was in Houston.
I think he was too.
Yeah.
I think he was too.
Well, he's off right now.
Yeah, I was say he's done. I mean, so we'll keep an eye on that. But as I'm watching the fans here, the comments come in. I mean, it's either everybody loves this move, or they are absolutely frustrated, because again, I think people expected a big splash because everybody heard, and we said it too. I mean, going into this coaching search around the NFL, this was the job that was most, that was going to be the most attractive out there. And I think for some people, are like, really, the best we could do is just promote our offensive coordinator?
Well, I don't know where I'm open to that discussion, and believe me, I kept watching it, but it's not like there was a name out there that just was huge. And I'm sorry, Mike McCarthy's not that name. Okay,
no.
There wasn't a candidate that I think they lost.
Right.
And they just didn't get him. Now people can say, well, Josh McDaniels. Well, I just think that what happened last year in Indianapolis bothers a lot of people.
Bad taste.
It bothers a lot of people. So I don't know. Maybe the best thing they could do is their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
That even by making a change, they had some continuity. Whereas all these other teams, like Arizona, I mean, you're looking at that, and Cliff Kingsbury is coming in from Texas Tech. I mean, that's a massive change.
And think about this. When in 2015, Freddie Kitchens moved over from tight ends coach, I believe, and became quarterbacks coach. And his job was to work with Carson Palmer, revitalize Carson Palmer's career, because when he went from Cincinnati to Hugh Jackson and the Raiders, he struggled a little bit, had injuries, and was trying to get his career back together. In 2015, as Freddie Kitchens as his head coach, Palmer threw for 4,600 yards, 35 touchdowns, and Arizona had the top-rated offense in the NFL. Now, Bruce Arians deserves a ton of that credit. I mean, it's his game plan. He really is Freddie Kitchens' mentor as much as anybody else, going back to when they were both at Alabama.
Right.
But it's not that Freddie Kitchens, this isn't a one-hit. I guess what I'm trying to say is what Kitchens did in these final 8 games, it's not a one-hit wonder. He's had success elsewhere, and he's well thought of elsewhere in the NFL.
Yeah, he is. There's no doubt about it. He's a real hard-working guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is. I mean, the term they use in the NFL is you have to be a grinder.
Yeah.
And he's a grinder. There's no question about it. I mean, he puts in the work, but he makes the work fun for them.
Yeah.
He allows them to have input into what he's doing. And I think that he's not going to forget what got him here.
Yeah.
So, and who got him here.
Yeah. I look forward to if there's an introductory press conference, be it tomorrow or on Friday, it's going to be must-see TV and must-listen-to radio. And like you said, I mean, this is where the fun starts, because this is a guy that, again, fans, you're going to relate to him. You're going to sit there and feel like he's one of us, but now he's got to go and lead this team on the field as the Browns continue to put together what they hope will be a playoff formula in 2019.
Yeah, because the expectation, is pretty high, and deservedly so. And a lot of it is because of what we saw from the Browns this year. And the other part of the equation is what we see in the AFC North currently, and the state of affairs with the other 3 teams that are in the division. They're all beatable.
Right.
Okay, and so if this thing continues to go down the track the right way, then I think it's very conceivable that the Browns should be in the hunt for postseason next year. And that's a lot of pressure on a first-time head coach.
Yeah. If anybody but Baker Mayfield was quarterback, I might be a little bit more concerned. But, I mean, that's what he lives for.
Yes, it is.
That's what he lives for. Oh, last thought. And we talked about this going into the search, that he was going to have. He wasn't going to have a vote, but he was going to have input, and apparently via FaceTime, according to reports, Mayfield did have. The Browns did get his opinion or his thoughts as the search progressed.
Now, Mary Kay Cabot contends that that is not the case.
Yeah.
And she conferred with Baker's agent.
Well, okay.
And Baker's agent said no. Baker did give them his opinion before he left town after the Baltimore game, when the players were released after their exit interview. So I don't know. That is interesting, though.
But again, he didn't have a vote. But I'm sure the fact that his offensive coordinator is going to be his head coach is something that's very pleasing to Six. Jimmy, we'll look for. Hopefully, we get this thing resolved, and it's an official by the time we have Channel 3 News at 11, and we'll certainly have more to talk about here in the coming days.
That we will.
All right, for David Herberton, for Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show on WKYC's Facebook Live.